Good morning. My name is Owen Devlin. I'm with the Dallas Uptown Rotary Club. Welcome to the District 5810 Grants Training Seminar. Today I'm going to cover district grants and global grants. The first part will be about district grants. I want to introduce the district grants team, and the first slide covers the organization. John Moser is our foundation chair. Aaron Moody is in charge of district grants and global grants. I'm in charge of global grants for this fiscal year. And then you can see the other team members. To contact us regarding your district grants, you want to use the email address that's at the bottom of the first slide, district5810grants@gmail.com. That is the email address where you're going to apply for grants. You will use the application form and a memorandum of understanding, and you will complete those forms and send it to the Gmail account that I just referenced. District grants are different from global grants. District grants are small projects that last about a year. The grants are applied for one fiscal year. You take care of the grant, you turn in the final report, and you close out the grant within 1 year. Global grants occur over 2 to 3 years. District grants are used for scholarships, for vocational training teams, and you can also use it for international service projects. Other programs that you now can use district grants for are RILA, Rotaract, Interact, Early Act, First Act. You can even use it for certain remodeling construction projects. You can't buy a building or structure, but you can remodel a special purpose site. Some examples of projects district grants cannot fund are fundraisers for Rotary clubs or public relations expenses, purchases of land or buildings, unrestricted cash donations. For example, the Rotary Foundation wants you to do something with the funds, not write a check to the general fund of a charity. Project signage over $500, establishment of a club foundation, or administrative expenses of other nonprofit organizations. So to understand better all the rules of grants, there's a document at the Rotary Foundation's website called Terms and Conditions. And this is a comprehensive write-up of all of the rules and discussion points for both district and global grants, where the foundation puts in writing exactly how it will look at different activities that we do and evaluate them. It's done in the framework of the Terms and Conditions document. Okay, examples of district grant projects. Some of them would be purchase of prescription medications and lab tests, purchase of UnoBook tablets at a school, funds for Challenge Air Day for area special needs children, purchase of medical supplies, a bicycle rodeo and child safety day, literacy supplies, and a large part of our district grants provide college scholarships. And you can also provide a scholarship to Camp RILA for local youth. The criteria to be eligible for a district grant: clubs must attend a mandatory conducted training program. You have to close out your prior district grants, and you have to be up to date with your Rotary International and district dues, as well as you have to be compliant with the IRS 990 for your club's organization. And then the other most important is that you need to contribute to the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation, because these are the funds that come back and we're able to distribute to the clubs in the form of district grants. That's why we have that rule. A critical document, in addition to the application, is you must sign a memorandum of understanding. which we abbreviate and call an MOU. The MOU is a contract between your club and the Rotary Foundation and the district, which says that you will use the funds in a fiduciary manner and you will keep good records, and that you will open the books of the project to both the Rotary Foundation and the district officers. An MOU is good for both a district grant and a global grant and must be signed annually. The Memorandum of Understanding should be signed by the club president and the club president-elect. Due dates for grant applications. Grant applications are due by August 15th. And they must submit a spending plan to Rhode Island by August 31st. And you will be told about the grant funding by September 15th. Then there's a final report to do where you summarize your project, you attach receipts, and then you send it to the district grant Gmail account. And the deadline for doing that is May 1st. So the big picture here, the clubs spend the money first out of their funds, and the district grant reimburses the clubs. The clubs will not get the money up front to spend. So that's why we have that rule regarding a final report. You send in the report with your receipts, then you get your check. Well, how much are district grants? Well, the funding levels are, there's a maximum amount per club of $3,500. You can break these grants up into smaller grants, the smallest one being $750. We have clubs that just apply for $2,000, maybe 2 grants. So we've had clubs apply for as many as 5 grants. So multiple grants are okay as long as it doesn't exceed $3,500. Regarding the grant fund allocation, so we get a lump sum of money. This fiscal year, it's about $79,000. So those are allocated among the clubs on the basis of your giving to the annual fund. So your per capita giving for the just completed fiscal year needs to be $120. That's strictly to the annual fund. It doesn't include Polio Plus or the endowment fund, because the annual fund comes back to us 3 years later, and we're able to spend that money in terms of the district grants. There's a calculation regarding how much money gets turned into district grants out of the total, but we're not going to cover that in this seminar. Now, so that's very important that you encourage your club members to give to the annual fund to get your per capita over $120. And those clubs that reach that goal, they're in Tier 1. So they will get the first cut of the pie, and Tier 2 gets the second cut of the pie. And you can see the percentages in the slide and how it's allocated. So that concludes my portion of the district grants. The next section is global grants. I'm going to take a little bit here.
Perfect. Good.
So that went through okay, didn't it?
That was good. That was good.
This next section is about global grants. Global grants are large projects. You need a budget of $30,000. And the global grants are multi-year projects, and most of your application is going to be through the Rotary Foundation's website, where you fill out the application. District grants is an application form that you send to the Gmail account, but the global grants are all done directly with the Rotary Foundation. And the way you find the website, there's a slide that shows you where you go for global grants. Basically, you're going to go to the Rotary Foundation and find the Global Grants tab. And it's very useful, the information that's there for you to do a global grant. They just updated it. It's very user-friendly, so don't be intimidated by applying for a global grant. To help you decide whether you want to do a district grant or a global grant, there's a decision tree which you can see in this PowerPoint slide. To apply for a district grant, it's a small project that's less than $3,500 in terms of a grant. Global grants are a minimum of $30,000 budget. So take a look at this slide in order to enable you to decide whether to go one way or the other. Global grant policies are, you start with putting together a global grant, and one of the tools that you can use is on the Global Grant website at the Rotary Foundation. There's a 9-page template which you can fill out, and it has all the questions that are going to need to be answered regarding a global grant. I would suggest you start by completing the template, which you can download from the Rotary Foundation's website. Now, with that template completed, the first step is to do a notice of intent, which is a 2 to 3 page document which you're going to send to John Moser, who's the foundation chair. You'll send it to me. You'll also send it to Rick Amsbury, the district governor. And this is a summary document of your global grant. And in that, you're going to describe what you're going to do and all the different facets of it in very summary level form, and also the amount of the budget and how much district grant funds are going to come from the district. They're known as DDF, District Designated Funds. So the first step is to get Governor Rick Amsbury and John Moser to approve the global grant concept. Once you have that approval, you can proceed to fill out the application form at the Rotary Foundation's website. If you want to do a calculation of your global grant, there's an Excel template that you can find at the Rotary Foundation. And that template will help you do the calculations. So an example of the calculations are in the slide. But I would suggest you use the download from the Rotary Foundation and fill in the slots or cells, and you'll be able to put together a pretty good budget. Now, in terms of being certified, you have to attend a grant managed seminar. You have to get an MOU signed. You also have to have district and Rotary International dues current, and you have to have current reports done on any outstanding global grants. So you can have more than one global grant, but you have to be current on your reporting for prior grants. Grant management is really important, and the Rotary Foundation stresses that. There's a slide which discusses the grant management overview. Project planning. The key is for a global grant, you're going to be the international club based in District 5810. You're going to have a host club, which is in the country of origin. You have to have a Rotary club where the project is going to be based. So you have to meet with the local Rotary officials and get them on board to help you with your service project. You can't just set up a global grant in District 5810 club and do it on your own. You need to have a host club. And for project planning, you're going to need a 3-person grant committee. And that committee will help you do all those things needed to fill out the application and then to do the for implementation. You're going to need a budget, you're going to need a document retention plan, and you're going to need to assign roles. Who's going to do what? Because there's a lot of work to do. One person can't possibly do this, and you need people working on it on both ends. So successful grant projects, what are they? You need to focus on the community needs It can't be something that we're sitting here in Dallas County, for example, coming up what we think are the community needs in another country, in another continent. You have to work with the local Rotarians. I would start with them and then find out through discussions with the community what the needs are. Because, for example, there could be other NGOs in that country doing the very same thing that you want to do, and they already have it covered. So you want to make sure that the community needs are something that are not being met, not being covered. And there are some other criteria. One of the big ones is sustainability, and I will be talking more about that later. How do you get partners to fill out your budget? Budgets can be $30,000 to $150,000. So you can find partners at the Rotary International Convention. You can go to project fairs. There's a website, matchinggrants.org. You can go to international meetings or Rotary on Facebook. Regarding needs assessment, you have to look at what you're trying to do and what's feasible. You don't necessarily want to do the maximum dollar project. You may be asked to do the maximum dollar project, but is that really practical? And can you continue that project into the future? So for example, you may be asked to build a desalination plant that costs $1 million, but you can get a $30,000 sand filter and you'll have filtered water. So that would be an example of how you have to evaluate what the community needs are and what's really doable. You want to set goals. They need to be measurable, sustainable, qualitative, and quantitative. So that's a big part of the global grant picture. You need to be able to measure what you're doing and have specific facts and numeric amounts that you can then subsequently measure. So that's something you really need to think long and hard about, is once you finish your project, how do you measure the results over time? So that's one of the Rotary Foundation's criteria. A budget is very important. Once you decide your project, you need to put together a budget, try to recruit some people with engineering backgrounds that understand engineering, putting together budgets, possibly a finance person. And the budget is part of your global grant application. There'll be a detailed budget for each phase of the plan. So put that together, and you want to make sure that you disclose any conflicts of interest. And for example, the people that you're dealing with there, they can have friends and acquaintances on the project that are getting paid, but you have to understand who they are and what the relationships are. And there are specific rules regarding Rotary members, what you can or can't do. And you need to look at the Rotary Foundation's website for specifics. Stewardship is very important because it can happen. The money goes over to another country and it gets stolen. So you very much have to know where the money's going, release the funds over time when you know what is exactly being done, and you can't rely 100% on people's word. You actually have to get verification of what people are doing, because at the end of the day, your club's responsible for these funds. And the slide shows some of the stewardship criteria. Regarding bank accounts, global grants require a separate bank account that's in the project's name. It can be in the United States. It often is. So when the foundation wires the money, they will send it to this separate bank account, and it's in the name of the project. That's a restricted bank account. District grants, you can deposit the check into the general fund account of your district or your Rotary Club more specifically. But on a global grant, you're going to have this separate bank account, and you'll be able to account for every dollar that goes out of that account, and you'll be able to report out of that account. The big picture for global grants are areas of focus. The areas of focus are peace and conflict prevention, disease prevention, water and sanitation, maternal and child care, basic education and literacy, and economic and community development. So you want to select one of these areas of focus and design your project to fit one of these areas of focus. And then when you apply for a grant, you only want to have one area of focus, because the questions that the Rotary Foundation will have you complete are very specific to an area of focus. And it would be too complicated to do more than one area of focus. So how do you get a global grant? Well, like I said previously, you apply online at the Rotary Foundation website. You need to have 6 areas of focus. It has to be sustainable, and you need a minimum budget of $30,000. Sustainable projects, what they are the project needs to stand on its own in the future after the Rotary Club members have left. And there are different ways of doing that. Generally, it involves some revenue stream that can be used to maintain the equipment, maintain whatever it is that you're building and installing. So you have to think about clever ways of getting money from the citizens who are benefiting, and that revenue stream is then used to maintain the equipment. And there are multiple descriptive materials on the Rotary Foundation's website regarding sustainability and what exactly that means. It's actually a fairly complicated and new subject area that not just Rotarians, but many people are concerned about sustainability. So I would spend the time to really understand what that means. And then when you work on the project, you'll have a better sense of what you're trying to accomplish. So the global grant application is an online process. You put together a proposal and you apply, and the Rotary Foundation will give you a big picture response regarding whether this is something they're willing to do. That's the first step. Second step is to fully complete the entire application. So financing guidelines. The contributions generally are made by the Rotarians. You do not need to raise the money from the beneficiaries in exchange for a grant. The Rotary Foundation doesn't expect the host country's people, they're the ones with the community needs. So the Rotary Foundation doesn't expect them to pay for the global grant. It may be payments over time in terms of the sustainability, but writing a check up front to fund the global grant, there's no requirement for the beneficiaries to do that. But that doesn't mean you can't ask the Rotary Club in the host country. They may have district designated funds, or they may have access through their municipal government. For example, if it's a project involving schools, you can get the local school district to put up money to help pay for your projects. That's okay to ask for that money from municipalities and government agencies. And we don't want you to cross-fertilize using funds from other grants. And the DDF allocation for a district means that the district governor will give you a certain percentage of the funds, but he won't fund 100% of the grant. You can tell by the calculation worksheet how much DDF will be available. Well, the implementation phase of a global grant, that's the exciting time when the money is going to be wired to the restricted bank account from the Rotary Foundation. Generally speaking, for smaller grants, up to $30,000, you'll get the money in a lump sum, and that's when you start your project work. And you want to be mindful of keeping good records on all the funds that are dispersed. The people in the host country need to have a plan as to how they're going to do that, and also they're going to present you with proposed invoices and purchase orders to get the equipment or services in place, and you will review them and then release the funds. So it needs to be a very careful process. You need to have reliable people in the host country, and you need to follow the original plan. So you have very detailed budget line items, and when different proposals come up on how to spend the money, you need to look at the budget and make sure you have money to cover that item. And you really want to be careful about going over the budget, because you have to, generally speaking, you want to follow the original plan. Evaluation of how the project is going during the project and at completion. These are multi-year projects, so you want to evaluate as what you're doing, how you are on the budget versus actual. So it's an ongoing process, and if something goes wrong, you want to understand that, and then you can take corrective action, and it'll also help you improve the second time you do this similar project. Often you'll start out with a one-year project, global grant project, and then you'll do the same thing over the next 2 or 3 years. So if you can improve upon it the second or third year, so much the better. So that's why you want to evaluate everything you do. So what are the resources that you can have for a global grant? Well, the Rotary Foundation has marvelous resources that you can use. So they're listed at the Global Grants website. There's at least 9-10 documents, including a very detailed global grant management guide. And you can download that. It's about a 50-page report. So that is a great resource. And that's where I would start if you wanted to really understand global grants, is get that management guide that's at the website. And it's really easy to find on the Rotary Foundation's website. And other resources are, you would want to have a financial management plan worksheet. You want to have a document retention worksheet. And if there's any transferring of custody of a bank account, you want to be very careful of that from one year to the next, if that's necessary. Document retention. You need to maintain these documents for 5 years. You want them to be electronic. So digitize all of your documents, because you're going to be uploading those to the Rotary Foundation. They want to see the invoices. They want to see other documents. So your periodic reporting to the Rotary Foundation involves uploads. So that's why it has to be digitized into PDFs. Global grants reporting, that's very important for your global grant to report during the 2-3 years that the project is underway. Everybody wants to know how you're doing, where is the money going? So you can't just go away after the funds are dispersed and then come back 3 years later to tell everybody what happened. So progress reports are needed, like I was saying, and they need to be approved by the parties involved, starting with the local representatives, the district, and then also the Rotary Foundation has to approve what you just sent them. So within 12 months of the first payment, you have your annual report. And then every 12 months throughout the life of the grant, you're going to turn in a report. This is basically a progress report. And then a final report, a wrap-up, is done within 2 months of completion. So that's very important. And the Rotary Foundation provides you with all the information that you need to do to complete your annual report. Global Grants Reports content. What you need are listed in this slide. And the important statistic is the number of beneficiaries and how they were benefited. This is very important that you track who the beneficiaries are and ongoing basis how they benefited. So you want to evaluate that up front, and then when you implement your plan, that you're tracking this, that you have a sense of what you're accomplishing. Because we're spending a lot of money, so we want to accomplish what our goals were, and then we want to be able to measure what those goals are. So that's where it gets, where you really have to put on your thinking caps and figure out how to do that. It's not always an easy thing, but you can do it, and the Rotary Foundation will help you. Conflict of interest, this is something that you have to be aware of. Big picture, the Rotarians generally can't put money in their pocket from a global grant. So you have to look for that. You can have friends, you can have not direct relatives, you can have cousins, that sort of thing, that are the contractors. But the host club, the Rotary members, they can't put a deal together where the money is going to go to them. That's not what Rotary is all about, and that's not something that can be done. So this can get confusing at times, so you need to consult with the Rotary Foundation representatives. So that wraps it up for global grants, but I'm available for questions. My name is Owen Devlin, and you have the contact information there. My cell phone number and email address is available at the bottom of that slide. And you can also talk to John Mosier, who's the foundation chair. He knows a lot about global grants, and he'll be glad to talk to you. District grants, you need to talk to Erin Moody, and her contact information is listed there also. Well, thank you very much for being here to understand all about district and global grants. Take care, and good luck on your projects.